Vine Street and Capon Street, conducting a proactive firearm investigation due to an increase of gunfire and firearm-related crimes occurring in that specific area. The officers were operating a unmarked vehicle. They were situated in the area of Keeney Park, conducting surveillance. They located an individual who was known to them. He was a person of interest in regards to this firearm investigation. They called in surrounding units to assist in conducting a contact with this individual. Prior to that occurring, this suspect crossed the roadway directly at the officers as their vehicle was parked. The officers witnessed him pulling out at least one firearm from his jacket, started firing multiple times in their direction. The officers immediately tried to leave the scene in the vehicle. The vehicle was struck by gunfire as they were fleeing the shots. The officers went south on Vine Street and parked on Mansfield Street. They got out of the vehicle. They ran towards the offender, tried to engage with him. He could not be located. A 10-0, which is an officer in trouble call, was dispatched to the entire city. Patrol officers as well as detectives and anybody available immediately responded to the area. They conducted a pretty wide incident location in regards to keeping everything compartmentalized in that specific area. The neighborhood residents were advised to basically shelter in place for a short time. During the course of the investigation, it was determined that the suspect was identified as 18-year-old Elijah Wallen. I'll spell the name. First name Elijah, A-L-I-J-A-Y. Last name Wallen, W-A-L-L-E-N. As soon as this information was determined, we conferred with our local, state, and federal partners. We got a good bead on his location in Manchester, Connecticut. We went out there to that location along with our state and federal partners. We took him into custody, Mr. Wallen, into custody safely and without incident at that location in Manchester on Main Street. Mr. Wallen did not have the firearms in his possession. Going back to the scene, they located 2 different caliber casings. During the expansive search from private surveillance video, as well as our Capital City Command Center, there is video of Mr. Wallen walking west on Capon Street, crossing over Vine Street, pulling out at least one firearm and discharging that firearm at the officers. We have no reason to believe that Mr. Wallen knew that the officers were in fact officers. He was charged with criminal attempt assault in the first degree, carrying a pistol without a permit, and unlawful discharge. He is currently at 101 Lafayette Street. He has since been transported over there and being held on a $1 million bond, and he is probably facing arraignment momentarily. I'll take any questions.
From Manchester or Hartford?
He is a Hartford resident.
Did you repeat his charges? These are 2 separate charges, correct?
It's 3 charges. Criminal attempt assault first degree, carrying a pistol without a permit, and unlawful discharge of a firearm.
Why don't you think he knows they were cops?
I said we have no reason to believe that he knew they were police officers.
Is there any clear motive as to why he got him when he started firing?
We don't know. The officers were looking at him for a while. He was a person of interest in that investigation. They were circling the block. We could just surmise that maybe he observed them, and whether he was, he felt spooked or whatnot, or maybe there's some other incidents going on with him. That individual is known to us in regards to local street gangs in that area. So there's potential maybe he thought it was a rival gang or whatnot, or members. So we tried to get that information through the interview, and that did not go successfully last night.
So he's a gang member?
He is involved with the neighborhood. There's specific little gangs in that area, in that neighborhood, and we believe that he is part of one of the local neighborhood gangs.
Do you know what kind of firearm he used?
There was a .22 caliber and a .380 caliber.
380?
Correct.
Do we have this as well?
There was 2 officers that were in the car. One is a 3-year member of the department. The other one is a 9-year member of the department.
Lieutenant, can you speak on how oftentimes these gang members, again, it may feel their territory is being threatened. There's someone in a car that might be in their territory. This isn't the first time this year that this has happened, where these officers have been in an area where a car was there believed to be, of suspicion to these gunmen. Talk just a little bit about that and what you've seen over the course of
Right, I'm glad you asked that. So obviously, this incident that just happened less than 24 hours ago, last November, we had 2 officers that were, again, doing proactive firearm investigations, and they got exactly what they were looking for. They were fired upon on South Whitney Street right around December, almost a year ago. And prior to that, about, I think, 18 months ago, maybe a little longer, on Hillside Avenue, we had 2 officers, 2 detectives rather, in an unmarked vehicle that were conducting a firearms and stolen motor vehicle investigation, and they were fired upon as well. All 3 of these ended with arrests. So, yeah, it's not a common occurrence, but it has become common in the past 18 months or so. So the 3 instances is too much.
What is this like for the department when this happens? How are officers feeling? What is the response like?
You know, we keep on going. There's a lot of firearms out there, and these officers understand the risks when they come to work every day, especially getting involved in such a dangerous task, firearm interdiction. So, yeah, I spoke to the officers myself. They were upstairs in major crimes. They were in great spirits. We took them to the hospital to just get checked out, make sure they were okay, and they were fine. And they're both professionals, and the whole department supports them. And we're here for the community, and we try to make the community as safe as possible. And we do conduct these investigations routinely. And firearm violence is one of our priorities in the city. So we'll do everything we can and throw every resource we can, whether it's within the walls of the police department as well as our local, state, and federal partners. We will continue on these investigations.
Can you sense how many rounds were fired and how many hit the cruiser?
They found 9 casings on scene. It was not a cruiser. It was an unmarked vehicle, sport utility vehicle.
If you can talk a little bit about how you guys were able to use your resources to catch the suspect so quickly.
So one of the officers that was in the vehicle, one of the 2 officers that was in the vehicle that was conducting the investigation, he knew of this particular individual. He had information that he was in possession of at least 1 firearm. He knew the area that he frequented. They went out there to conduct surveillance, at which point they located him. They were doing their job. They did it very, very well. They got exactly what they were looking for. They knew the area where the individual was. They knew who he was. They knew where he hung out. They went there, and they knew for the most part that he was in possession of at least 1 firearm, and turns out they were 100% accurate in that.
Is he connected to anything else you guys are investigating? Like, do we foresee any other charges?
In regards to this particular incident, no.
Was there any exchange of gunfire after the officers got out of the vehicle, or was it just the shots fired towards the vehicle?
Just the initial shots fired. The vehicle was struck at least once. It's hard to tell when the window shattered. It was struck at least once. So,
Where was it
yeah.
struck?
It was struck on the passenger. Yesterday I mentioned it was the driver's side. It was actually the passenger side window, the front passenger window.
Casings found inside the vehicle as well?
The casings? Well, the gunman was outside of the car. The casings were outside.
Any bullets or anything found
I
inside?
haven't checked the crime scene division reports, so we'll look into that.
You mentioned this entire investigation is part of a larger investigation for gun violence in the area. What sort of violence are we talking about? What are these neighbors seeing there?
Shots fired. We have our shots fired technology out there, and when we do get shots fired, just around the perimeter of Keeney Park, north of Keeney Park, that specific area, we do have, not specific to that street, but some side roads, we have had some violence, some gun violence. Obviously, not too long ago, on Westland Street, 191 Westland, which is just a couple blocks over, and we've had some incidents on Enfield and Garden Street, which is a block and 2 eastbound. So they were kind of compartmentalizing their efforts strategically to that area where we're seeing more of that gunplay going on. So, as I said before, they got exactly what they were looking for.
Was the video city surveillance camera or private?
It was not. It was private.
Of a business or a house?
A local home. Anybody else? Excuse me? We're going to analyze it a little more. Our crime analysts are looking into that. We reviewed it. We still have to kind of tag that and put it into evidence, but we will be likely providing that relatively shortly. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.